Oh, here, have a seat right here. Have a seat right here. Got a Spanish-speaking male, lacerations through the throat, and looks like he was punched in the face, so probably head injuries.
Just 8 hours ago, 25-year-old Saul Lopez was having dinner at this house on Oak Forest Drive. He's there with a woman he recently met online. To him, it's just a casual Saturday, but he has no idea that within minutes, he'll be fighting for his last breath. He's inside a silver Honda Odyssey with a woman who goes by Crazy and an unknown male. It's calm until it isn't. Suddenly, the vibe shifts. Repeatedly beaten and stabbed, Saul is left disoriented, but the couple isn't finished. They drive him to a bridge, beat him some more, and toss him 50 feet into the Escambia River. Believing they had committed the perfect crime, the two assailants move on to their next victim. However, there was one small detail they didn't account for. Saul Lopez refused to die. October 8th, 2023, Pensacola, Florida. At a Cumberland Farms near Scenic Highway, an Escambia County Sheriff's deputy starts his shift with a cup of coffee. He looks out toward the intersection and sees a man stumbling across the roadway. The man is barefoot, soaked in blood. His face is bruised, swollen, and barely recognizable.
What's that?
No speak Spanish.
You okay?
No speak Spanish.
Oh, here, have a seat right here. Have a seat right here. Car Frank 13. What happened?
Amigo.
Can I get EMS 51 to me at the Tom Thumb at Scenic Highway and 9 Mile Road? How old are you? ¿Cuántos años? How old? You.
When the deputy made contact, it was clear communication would be challenging. Aside from the language barrier, Saul had lost a significant amount of blood and was severely dehydrated. His jaw was badly bruised and his face so swollen that forming words was painful. Disoriented and confused, this was someone whose body was actively shutting down while his mind was still fighting to survive.
I'm gonna have to get
He was touched with a deadly weapon. Yep. So that's an aggravated battery.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get Ramirez here.
Okay.
Amigo.
Hey.
He was sitting down for a while. He's standing up.
Necesito llegar a casa.
¿Qué ha ocurrido?
Car 393.
¿Qué ha ocurrido?
Are you knocking on the door?
Sí, unos amigos me montaron en un carro anoche. Unos. Y me trajeron y me quisieron matar. Y me robaron zapatos y el teléfono y el carro.
Some friends rode me a car last night, put makeup and killed me, stole my shoes and phone and the car. So they got carjacked.
To take a screenshot of that?
¿Dónde sucedió?
Sí, me trajeron de aquí de Pensacola, Florida, aquí cerquita. Me montaron en el carro y lo único que me dijeron fue, amigo, hasta este día vas a hacer que vas a vivir, y vinieron a tirar desde arriba el puente, caía al lago abajo y ahorita una muchacha que andaba en una lancha me ayudaron a salir.
Car 393, 10-4 check.
Yes or no question might help.
10-4.
¿Conoces los nombres?
No los conozco, pero a ellos sí los conozco.
I don't know them for them, and I know them. Try to ask them just yes or no questions. Were you thrown off a bridge?
Yeah.
¿Dónde te tiraste de un puente?
No, me tiraron desde el puente arriba, me traían en el carro mi camioneta, me bajaron y me pusieron el cuchillo aquí en la nuca y luego me tiraron del puente y caí al agua abajo.
Car 27. 87, go ahead.
Se acerca la ambulancia.
So, he's got lacerations to his throat. He's not bleeding right now. His ears, the back of his head. He may have some broken ribs, his face.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Guy come walking from across the street right here. He's got probably 4, 5 lacerations, deep lacerations to his throat. His face is all bruised and broke up. He doesn't speak any English at all.
We're gonna go ahead and head up there before his airway starts to crack. He's cut pretty deep right there.
Sacred. Yeah.
Sacred?
Saul was rushed to a nearby hospital as a trauma alert. Upon arrival, he was taken straight into emergency surgery. Because of the severity of his injuries and the language barrier, detectives couldn't interview him right away. Police records show that Saul could not identify his attackers by their real names, so they only knew the basics: assaulted by 2 people, thrown from a bridge, and vehicle had been stolen. But even with just those facts, one thing was clear: this was extreme violence. Escambia County Sheriff Chip Simmons said he believed the assault was not random. He described it as cold, calculated, and called Saul's survival miraculous.
It appears as if they knew what they were going to do. In fact, I think they tell him what they were going to do, so much so that they take not only his money, they take his cell phone, then ultimately they take his shoes. So it seems like they took everything that they could, including trying to take his life, which ended up being an attempted murder, a cold and calculated attempted murder.
Deputies immediately began searching for Saul's stolen Honda Odyssey. They didn't have to look far. A VIN check revealed the van had been found burned earlier that same morning, roughly 20 miles south of where Saul flagged down the deputy. That detail told investigators something important. This wasn't just about hurting Saul, it was about erasing him. The next day, Detective Martinez finally interviewed Saul at the hospital. That's when the story started to come into focus. Saul explained that about a week earlier he had received a Facebook friend request from an unknown woman, later identified as Natalie Fonseca. Online, she referred to herself as Crazy Fonseca. From Saul's perspective, nothing about this felt strange. He accepted the request and they started messaging. It seemed normal to him. Detective Martinez later broke it down for the court.
Go ahead and take a seat.
Hi, Cory Garman.
You may.
Good afternoon. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Lionel Martinez Jr., M-A-R-T-I-N-E-Z,
Mr. Martinez, where are you employed?
with the Escambia County Sheriff's Office.
In what capacity?
I am an investigator of major crimes.
And back in October 2023, did you become involved in cases involving a Mathis Reynolds and a Natalie Fonseca?
Yes, I did.
Can you please explain to the court how you became involved in the investigation and what you did as part of the investigation?
Yes, sir. I got assigned the case on October 9th. Being the only Spanish-speaking investigator in major crimes, I reviewed the reports from the initial deputy and also the deputy who spoke the victim at the hospital. I wanted to get firsthand perspective from the victim. So I went up to Sacred Heart. He was still in the hospital. Spoke to him there. Got some more details. He told me that he had met a female who had sent him a friend request on Facebook on October the 6th. That female reached out to him saying that she was hungry and wanted some food, asked for a pizza or some McDonald's. And he said, instead of that, can I get you some tacos? And she agreed to give him some tacos. He met with her, did the tacos, took her to her house. Uneventful that day.
The following day, October 7th, Natalie contacted him again and asked to see him. Saul said he was at work, but agreed to stop by later that evening after cashing his paycheck. When he arrived at her house, Natalie said she needed to pick up her cat from an unknown location. Saul offered to drive, but she insisted on driving herself, telling him he didn't know where they were going. It seemed like a simple request, but it was actually a compliance test. When Natalie insisted on driving, she was taking control of the environment. Saul thought he was just being a gentleman, but to a predator, he was signaling that he wouldn't offer any resistance. They made the trip and returned to the house without incident. Natalie went inside with the cat while Saul waited in the van. Minutes later, she emerged, but this time she wasn't alone. Next to her was a man later identified as 31-year-old Nafis Reynolds. They both climbed in, and at some point, Nafis produced a firearm. Saul said he didn't think much of it at first, but that would soon change. Natalie, again in the driver's seat, told him they were going to a cookout at her uncle's house, so they drove together.
Once they were there, they had some drinks, they had some hamburgers. The victim wanted to leave, and they said, okay, so they went back. At that time, he told him again, the black man began beating him with the pistol in his hands. Based on my investigation, I'll get to this. From there, they drove him, the female going, the spokesman told him that this was the night that he was going to die. That they were going to drive him somewhere, take everything from him, and leave him there. So he said they drove for a while, and they came to a bridge, they got him out, the male and female, began to beat him some more, and then he felt a knife on his throat, and they slashed his throat from one ear to the other. After doing that, they picked him up, threw him over the bridge. He fell in the water.
Saul explained that after he hit the water, he felt a stinging sensation along his neck from the wounds, but was desperate to stay afloat. He swam to a small patch of land and waited in the darkness, exhausted and bleeding. At first light, he managed to flag down a passing boat. They brought him to shore, and from there, Saul summoned the last of his strength to walk for help. Eventually, he reached a convenience store near Scenic Highway where a sheriff's deputy happened to be grabbing coffee before his shift. That coincidence saved Saul's life. Detective Martinez testified that he later spoke with Saul again and asked whether he could identify the house where the woman lived.
I was able to talk to him and ask him for some details if he knew how to get to this house with this female. He was able to utilize Google Earth, and from the store where he had seen her drive to the neighborhood, which ended up, after leaving the hospital, with his directions, I was able to come across the address, which is Oak Forest Drive. I returned back to the office and looked to see if there was any calls for service at that address. There was a call service in September the 4th, the same year. There was an armed disturbance. There was two suspect victims that had stabbed each other. The victim in this case was Mr. Reynolds, and the suspect was his brother, Mr. Coles. The witness was Natalie Fonseca. I was able to take screenshots of the body cam footage from the deputies that responded to that scene. And based on the description that was given by the victim at the hospital, I was able to see that Mr. Reynolds and Natalie Fonseca were my suspects. Followed up to try to get some video from the store. I was able to obtain video from October the 6th, where the victim and Mrs. Fonseca went to the store to buy the drinks after he had bought her the tacos. I also was able to obtain the video from October the 7th, where Ms. Fonseca was driving the van. There was a male passenger in the van, but from the video you can see, based on what the victim had told me he was wearing that night, a white shirt, and you can see because it's...
By chance, while Detective Martinez and his partner were reviewing surveillance video, Natalie Fonseca and Nafis Reynolds walked into the same store. Investigators waited for them to leave and followed them. Knowing there were two entrances to the subdivision, Detective Martinez positioned himself and recorded both as they entered a house on Oak Forest Drive. That surveillance gave them the probable cause they needed. A judge signed warrants for the carjacking and robbery of Saul Lopez, and on October 23rd, both were detained. But the case got darker during the interview. When Detective Martinez pressed Natalie, she accidentally revealed that this wasn't a one-time event.
While interviewing Ms. Fonseca, I asked her, this is about the Mexican food, from the store. And she started to tell me about the details about picking him up at the Circle K, taking him to the house, and, parking. She went in the house, and by the time she came out, everything had already happened, and he was gone. And I was a little confused, but I was like, well, that's not, Mexican at the store I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one that had his throat cut. And then she just sat back in her chair like, oh. I said, because he didn't die.
So at that point, investigator, was it clear to you that Ms. Fonseca was actually talking about a separate victim?
Yes, sir.
Detective Martinez realized she was confusing Saul with another victim. Just 9 days after leaving Saul for dead, Natalie and Nafis ran the same play again, luring a second Spanish-speaking man to that Oak Forest house and robbing him at gunpoint. Ultimately, it was the warrant for Saul's case that finally put them in handcuffs. But prosecutors still had one major concern. The defense could argue that Saul's initial identification of the suspects happened in a hospital bed while he was traumatized and medicated, therefore it could be unreliable. So, in December, weeks after the suspects were locked up, detectives brought Saul back in. They needed him to look at a photo lineup and to put a face to the nightmare once and for all.
Sí. Quizá. ¿Qué tan seguro?
Sí.
100%?
Sí.
¿Seguro? Firma. ¿Está bien?
Saul didn't hesitate. He easily picked out Natalie Fonseca, the woman who lured him, the woman he referred to as a friend. But he wasn't done. He still had to identify the man holding the gun, who was considered the primary enforcer.
¿Qué estás seguro?
Sí.
100%?
Seguro.
Misma cosa.
¿Vamos a entrar?
Initial here,
Okay.
and hand it to you on the
All right, thank you. Está bueno, igual. Son las personas que te enseñaron y en las fotos, estos son las personas que te secuestraron, te golpearon,
Sí.
y te robaron de la camioneta.
Sí.
Okay. ¿Y qué más te recuerdas de esa noche?
Pues como le digo yo, pues cuando usted me preguntó, pues no me recuerdo mucho más, porque sí, no dejé de, o sea, no me acordaba mucho porque todavía me dolía, pero durante me tuvieron allá, pues ellos me golpearon con la pistola.
Ajá.
Y todo por todo el camino que me llevaba, entonces yo les decía que no me golpearan, y ya después no me dejaron de golpear los dos. De ahí me quitaron la llave de la camioneta. Yo les decía que yo la llave no se la podía dar porque yo iba a manejar, todos me las quitaron. Ya luego llegaron allá, ya puesto allá fue cuando me dijeron que iba a ser el último día que iba a vivir, y ya cuando ellos me bajaron de la camioneta y me dijeron que me hincara, pues yo me bajé y me hinqué. Ya cuando solo me hinqué fue cuando ya sentí que me agarraron del pelo y me doblaron la nuca para atrás, y entonces pues ya yo no vi de si fue ella o fue él, pero ella sí estaba atrás de mí y él estaba enfrente. Y como ya estaba oscuro, pues yo no, ya cuando me recuerdo cuando yo sentí la primera cortada, pues fue cuando yo pegué el grito, y ya después de eso yo no me di cuenta nada más.
With that ID locked in, the state attorney had everything needed to upgrade the charges to attempted first-degree murder, putting life sentences on the table. Both defendants initially pleaded not guilty, but the evidence against them was overwhelming. Facing the possibility of life in prison if convicted, both Natalie Fonseca and Nafis Reynolds decided it was in their best interests to enter no contest pleas. The September 2025 plea deal reduced charges to attempted second-degree murder, carjacking, and kidnapping with a max prison term of 30 years. Before the judge handed down the sentences, she gave them one last opportunity to speak, a moment to show remorse, take accountability, or ask for leniency. Natalie, who was essentially the bait in a violent honey trap, went first.
There are no words for what both victims and myself have experienced. Even words driven with me, leave so much unsaid. I can never get down on paper the mental, emotional, and physical abuse that has developed from being in a relationship with Mr. Reynolds since July 9, 2015. I felt the need to protect someone who created trauma within me and took advantage of my vulnerability. This phase in my life where my freedom was paused has taught me about life, and most importantly about myself. Not everyone has good intentions in life. Mr. Reynolds persuaded my mentor with rainbows and unicorns to get me out of my mother's house at the age of 16. Where I was once pure, enjoying life as a teen, I thought love was what I found, but love only became a mental illness. I became fragile, confused, addicted, even suicidal. Every visible scar on my body came from Mr. Reynolds.
Good afternoon. Ms. Fonseca, do you remember me?
I do.
Okay. You remember telling the judge a minute ago that you gave 2 depositions in this case? They were with me, weren't they?
Right.
Do you remember the very first question that you asked when Mr. Longmire and myself walked in the room?
I do.
What was that question?
What would my sentencing be looking like?
If I suggested to you that you said, Mr. Longmire, what am I going to get for talking today? Would you agree that that's the truth?
Yes.
Did you hear your lawyer several times ask if you were taking responsibility for your conduct today? Okay. But what if I suggested to you that in your letter that you read to the judge, you repeatedly deflected towards Mr. Reynolds? Would you agree with that?
I don't agree.
Okay, I certainly appreciate that. Did you hear the victim in this case, the one that took the stand there and testified with an interpreter here in Pensacola, when I said, was one of these people the leader? Was one of these people worse? And he said, no, they were both similarly, situated. Did you hear him say that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, is it your position that the lion's share of the fault goes to Mr. Reynolds? Because listening to you read that letter makes me think that's what you're trying to say.
I took accountability for my own actions.
Okay, what were your actions?
I could have spoke up when I had the chance, but I didn't.
Well, when you say the chance is to speak up and tell the truth, are you referring to the 2 times that Mr. Longmire came out to the jail to depose you?
No, at the time of the incident, when it was occurring.
Would you acknowledge that you were not fully truthful in either of the 2 times that Mr. Longmire and I came out to see you?
I was truthful.
Okay, so that's my question.
Mr. Longmire?
So to kind of echo what Mr. Mitchell is asking you, you're I did come out and speak with you, correct? And when I did, on both those occasions, certainly the last occasion, did I not say to you that, Ms. Fonseca, I don't believe that you were telling me the complete truth? Did I tell you that?
You did say that.
Did I further tell you that I felt like you were minimizing your role in the situation?
You did say that.
All right. And now you heard me ask Investigator Martinez about when he saw you and Mr. Reynolds at the store. Did you hear me ask him about that?
I did.
And so when you were at the store with Mr. Reynolds, you didn't try to run or get help at any point, did you?
I did not.
And then on the night where Mr. had his throat sliced and thrown off of the bridge, you didn't do anything to help Mr. did you?
I did not.
Call 911 on that night?
I did.
And then when you all left from throwing him off of the bridge, telling him that that was going to be his last night on earth. Did you go with Mr. Reynolds out to that new area to construct that Publix? Did you go with Mr. Reynolds then?
Being forced into this whole situation, I did go.
Okay, so that's your position. You were forced in. But after the van was set on fire, did you also leave with Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah,
Go back to that house, take a shower, climb in that bed, and go to sleep?
yeah.
And then after that situation, merely 8 days later, on October 16th, did you again go with Mr. Reynolds and participate in a robbery of Mr. Sanchez?
I did not participate.
And I appreciate the fact that you said it. Let me ask you this way. Without you, would Mr. Sanchez ever ended up on Oak Forest Drive? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Sanchez only ended up there because he took you home, correct?
Correct.
And then when law enforcement found you and Mr. Reynolds and arrested you on October 23rd, did you not have the backpack on your back with Mr. Sanchez's items in it?
I did.
And let me ask you, what's the last line of your letter?
I had who said I'm a victim.
No, see, that's where you're wrong. Aren't the victims Mr. and Mr. Sanchez?
Why would you consider me as a victim?
Answer my question. Are they the victims or are you the victim today?
All three of us are.
Nothing really good.
Mr. Early?
Rather than fully accepting responsibility, Natalie emphasized her own struggles and circumstances. She offered explanations that shifted the blame away from herself and portrayed herself as under the influence of Nafis. With that, the court turned to Nafis Reynolds.
Mr. Reynolds, how are you? How are you? Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Okay. Sometimes I don't speak loudly enough, and it's a bad habit, but we gotta speak loudly today, okay? Yes, sir. All right. Now, sir, your audience is both Judge Nobles as well as the victims in this case, you can see on the screen as well as in the stands, okay? Are you nervous? Yeah. Okay. If any of my questions are unclear, you let me know. The same goes with Judge Nobles as well as Mr. Longmire, right? Have you thought about what you'd like to say to Judge Nobles and the victims in this case?
Yeah, I know.
The microphone is yours, sir.
That I was raised in a stable household. I come from wonderful parents that I wouldn't change for nothing in this world. My mother raised me on love and understanding and teaching me to treat my friends like family, a stranger like I would want to be treated. My father taught me about having morals and principles and showed me and showed me I would like to apologize for some people's lives I destroyed by my actions and choices I've made that brought me to the victim and all this. I'm deeply sorry. I pray.
Nafis, as I seen earlier, you're a young person. How old are you?
It's a third church.
33 years old. So Judge Noble might give you 30 years today. She might give you 20. She might give you 25. She might give you 15. What's your life going to look like when you ultimately leave prison? Said a better way, what if the court was concerned that you might be danger to our community if you were someday released from prison or when you are? What would you say to that?
That I wouldn't be danger. I just made a mistake. And I wasn't on my mind.
I heard the part of your letter where you offered apologies to the victims in this case. But you see the gentleman there in the red t-shirt in the second row. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to him?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I hurt you so bad. I wish I could change it.
Any remarks for the other gentleman as well?
It's the same.
Yes, thank you. Those are my questions.
The sheer violence of what happened to Mr. is, in his letter to me, he said that Ms. Fonseca looked at him and said, something along the lines of, "This is your last day to live." I cannot imagine the fear. He then said she grabbed his hair and pulled it backwards, and Mr. Reynolds slit his throat. And I believe it was 3 times. That, in and of itself, is enough to convince me to the sentence that I am going to sentence.
The court rejected the idea that the attack against Saul was impulsive or accidental. It was deliberate, coordinated, and nearly fatal. In the end, both Natalie Fonseca and Nafis Reynolds were sentenced to 30 years in prison, ensuring that neither would have the opportunity to harm anyone else in the community for a very long time. What isn't clear, however, is how fully Saul ever recovered. Court documents show that both victims had the guts to stick around and see their cases through to sentencing. But what isn't in the file is how Saul is actually doing today. Trauma like that doesn't just vanish when the gavel bangs. We know he survived the attack, but we don't know the price he paid for it. All we can say for certain is that he lived and he made sure his attackers answered for what they did.